Through our PIs right now, we do have some evidence that Kim Porter may have been poisoned and murdered.
In a Manhattan federal courtroom, a 17-minute video played that would forever alter Sean Diddy Combs' life. What prosecutors presented wasn't merely proof of abuse, it was the key piece of evidence connecting Kim Porter's untimely death in 2018 to the most influential man in hip-hop. The secretly recorded video by Kim in her apartment would prove to be the evidence that exposed a powerful empire of silence and intimidation. Kim Porter passed away in November 2018. They attributed it to pneumonia, a natural death. But what the authorities were unaware of was the fact that Kim had been preparing for this moment for a long time before she died. She had been collecting evidence, taping conversations, and building a case that took 6 years to take shape. Today we are examining how that evidence eventually surfaced, and why the prosecutors are convinced that they can prove what many believed all along, that Kim Porter's death was no accident. This story weaves together 3 distinct segments: the strange event surrounding Kim's death, the prior history of violence, and the systematic cover-up that followed. Each piece flows into the next, building a timeline that unfolds from domestic violence to murder to one of the biggest criminal cases in the history of entertainment. To understand why Kim Porter's death was a problem, we must first understand who she was and what she meant to Diddy. Kim was more than just another girlfriend. She was the mother of 3 of his children and his girlfriend for over 13 years. Most of all, she had his secrets. This made her both the most precious and the most dangerous person in his life. Officially, Kim's timeline of death is full of problems that should have raised serious questions. She had a mild case of flu-like symptoms for a few days and was receiving medical care, including antibiotics. Her health, however, took a sharp turn for the worse, and she died alone in her Toluca lake house before anyone could assist her. The abrupt change from a manageable illness to death was hard to explain and raised immediate concerns over what actually happened in the final minutes of her life. The first indication that the official story could be false came from Al B. Shore, the father of Kim's eldest son and her ex-boyfriend. His statements doubting the pneumonia diagnosis were not just gossip, they were from a man who was more familiar with Kim's medical history than most. He claimed that she was very healthy a few days before she died, which contradicted what the doctors said and suggested that some important detail had been left out of the public explanation. Al B. Shore's words were made more significant by his later health issues. He fell ill with a serious health problem that almost killed him after he began questioning Kim's death. The timing suggested a trend in which individuals who disagreed with the official story had severe issues. His survival allowed him to continue asking questions that others were afraid to ask. Kim's physical checkup by the doctor revealed information that was not typical for death from pneumonia. Blood spots on her bed sheets indicated an injury that could not be explained by illness. In addition, her phone and other electronic gadgets were not present at the scene, suggesting that evidence that could have revealed the truth about her final days had been deliberately removed. As the public wondered a great deal about Kim's death, a second story was emerging that would better explain what had occurred. Gene Deal, one of Diddy's former bodyguards, began speaking about the abuse he witnessed in the relationship between Diddy and Kim. These were not isolated incidents, but a continuous effort to control and intimidate Kim that escalated over time. Deal's testimony showed a pattern of violence being used to remain in control. He testified about times when Kim fought back against Diddy's abuse and, in the process, hurt him. Those details were significant because they implied that Kim was not just a victim, she was resisting, and that would have made her more of a threat to someone trying to remain in control. Source: the abuse extended beyond physical assault to include more psychological manipulation. Mark Curry, a former Bad Boy Records artist, revealed that Diddy had installed a bug on Kim's phone, allowing him to monitor her calls and activities. This type of monitoring indicated an individual who was losing control and desperate enough to cling to authority over his victim. These surveillance activities were only one part of a larger trend of controlling behavior. This was in addition to keeping Kim cut off from possible allies and creating an environment where she couldn't safely seek help. The wiretapping also ensured that Diddy would know if Kim was going to escape him or reveal his secrets. This provided him with an early warning about any danger to his empire. The increase in controlling behavior happened at the same time as Kim knew more about Diddy's criminal behavior. She had known him for more than 10 years and had seen parts of his business that could ruin him if revealed. She was valuable and dangerous due to this information, and Diddy was in a position where he needed to keep her quiet but couldn't guarantee her loyalty. To understand what Kim Porter was thinking in her final years, we must recognize that she was aware of the danger she faced. A mysterious book entitled Kim's Lost Words offers a glimpse into her mind and reveals that she had been writing about Diddy's actions before her death. Whether or not the book's contents aligned with other evidence suggesting that Kim was building a case against her abuser, the book described some of the times violence was used, and there was a pattern of increasing abuse. These were not random displays of anger, but deliberate assaults intended to secure control by fear. The stories included broken bones, weapon threats, and sexual intimidation that created a portrait of planned abuse waged by an individual who felt that his status and wealth rendered him immune to consequences. The book revealed that Kim had been gathering evidence to support her allegations. She had documentation, photos, and audio recordings that could have exposed not just Diddy's abuse, but also his larger criminal enterprise. Documenting was Kim's way of safeguarding herself and her children from someone she knew was physically violent. Kim began recording around the same time as the media began taking an interest in Diddy's business and personal conduct. When there began to be speculation that he had been involved in illegal conduct, Kim would have realized that her knowledge made her a liability. By secretly recording in her own home, she demonstrated that she was aware of the risks she was taking and was attempting to protect herself. Placing hidden recording devices in her own home revealed Kim's desperation and her acknowledgement that she needed evidence of Diddy's threats and violence. The recordings would eventually prove to be the prosecutor's key to constructing their case, but they were Kim's last resort to obtain evidence that would endure, even if she didn't. The 17-minute video prosecutors showed in court was the culmination of Kim Porter's work to document evidence. Recorded in 2017, a year and a half before her death, the video recorded Diddy's true nature when he thought no one was watching. The video showed that Kim had a reason to be fearful for her life and had gone to extreme lengths to record the abuse she suffered. The details of the recording confirmed that Kim was prepared. The camera, which was secretly installed, was positioned to capture the central living space of her house, indicating that she worked on the assumption that Diddy's worst outbursts of rage occurred in areas where he felt most dominant. The timestamp indicated that the video was taken late one evening when their kids were probably sleeping upstairs, and therefore Kim was protecting them and gathering evidence. The video indicates that Diddy had entered Kim's house without invitation. He appeared to believe he could enter her private areas whenever he wanted. Kim's reaction during the struggle showed that she had reached her limit. She tried to de-escalate the situation but remained firm, which showed her fear and her unwillingness to be totally dominated. This mix of wanting to defend herself and resist would have made her appear more intimidating to Diddy, as it showed that she was no longer the submissive victim Diddy wanted. The physical assault that followed was planned and intentional, not a moment of rage. Diddy's behavior showed that he was naturally likely to use violence to prove dominance, so this was not a one-time occurrence, but something that he had done many times before. The escalation from threats to violence followed a predictable sequence that showed that he had done it repeatedly. The threats issued during the attack were not just for hurting someone immediately, they also contained plans for future solutions. Diddy's threat of making people disappear indicated that he considered murder a real way to solve his issues. These were not idle threats, but serious warnings that Kim's life was indeed at risk if she continued to stand in the way of his domination. The video ended with Kim alone, injured, but its impact lasted far beyond the night. The recording proved Kim was always at risk for violence, and Diddy saw her as an enemy that had to be silenced. Knowing this, her later death became not a medical mystery, but a clear-cut case of planned action. The period from the videotaping to Kim's death showed that both parties were becoming increasingly desperate. Kim continued to collect evidence while Diddy intensified his efforts to manipulate and silence her. Corey Gamble being at Kim's house on the day she passed away became more significant when considering the video evidence. His unusual arrival on the scene before the official investigators arrived suggested that he was working with someone who understood what had occurred and wanted to control the situation. This type of planning indicated that it was planned rather than an impulsive response to unplanned circumstances. The rapid closure of the official investigation aligned with evidence suggesting that powerful individuals were working to suppress information about Kim's death. The failure to fully examine her electronic equipment, the shallow autopsy, and the swift declaration of natural causes all indicated that the investigation had been crafted to clear a preconceived finding instead of establishing the truth. Kim's phone and other electronic gadgets were taken, which was an an important part of the cover-up. These gadgets might have contained messages that revealed the truth about her relationship with Diddy, and might have provided evidence of threats or plots against her life. Removing them from the scene meant that the killer was well aware of what the investigators would be looking for. The video evidence against Diddy was not a standalone incident. It was just one piece in a larger pattern of crimes that federal prosecutors were attempting to decipher. Kim Porter's murder was just one component of what they claimed was a long-term crime operation that ran for years, shielded by money, fame, and intimidation. Federal counts against Diddy were for extortion, sex trafficking, and conspiracy. These crimes explain why Kim Porter posed such a credible threat. She was a member of his inner circle for over a decade and would have witnessed the planning and execution of crimes that helped build his empire. Additional celebrity involvement in Diddy's dealings made it even more important that Kim Porter be silenced. Her testimony not only could incriminate Diddy, but also reveal a list of celebrities, politicians, and business leaders who were involved. When the 17-minute video was shown in the Manhattan federal courthouse, it wasn't only proof of domestic violence, it was the key evidence in a possible murder charge that would put Diddy in prison for life. The impact of the video on Diddy during the court proceedings revealed that he had finally realized his strong defenses had collapsed. His physical reaction was not merely embarrassment or remorse. It was the realization that he was being held accountable for something his money and influence could no longer prevent. Prosecutors were gathering additional evidence, such as testimony from over 120 people who said they were victims. This testimony would prove that Diddy's criminal operation was well organized. The national investigation discovered cash receipts and messages showing planning and schemes in certain criminal operations. The records would help determine whether Kim's murder was planned and if others were involved in carrying it out or hiding it. Kim Porter's video evidence was a game changer not just for Diddy's case, but for the way the entertainment industry deals with allegations of abuse and crime by powerful figures. Her choice to secretly record her abuser became a source of hope for other victims who might be facing the same threats and risks. The broader impact of the case went beyond individual justice to the way police investigate suspicious deaths of celebrities and wealthy individuals. The case demonstrated how quickly cases are resolved when influential individuals are involved and highlighted the need for independent investigations of these cases. The group of people who may have helped cover up Kim's murder or were involved with Diddy's criminal actions were also investigated as federal officials looked deeper into the case. This growing list of people to hold accountable encouraged some to come forward, which could reveal more about the extent of the criminal operation's reach. Kim Porter's secret video turned a case that seemed to be closed into one of the largest criminal cases in the history of entertainment. The 17-minute video she secretly recorded at home became the crucial evidence that connected her mysterious death to a decades-long history of violence and crime that had been protected by money and intimidation for years. As this case is heard in court, Kim Porter's videotaped evidence will be the central point of the prosecution. They want to show what everyone suspected but couldn't prove, that her death was the final act in a brutal plan to silence a woman who would not stay quiet. Her courage in creating that evidence will make sure she is heard, and justice is done. As the courtroom drama unfolds, the question remains, did Kim Porter's final act of courage expose a hidden truth? We want to hear your thoughts. Do you believe the new evidence changes everything? Drop your comments below and join the conversation. If you found this story compelling, don't forget to subscribe for more in-depth analyses and updates on this case and others like it.